So I've built this beautiful Raspberry Pi NAS with one fatal thinking error. If you've seen the video, you know what it is, but if you haven't, I recommend you checking it out. But to keep it short, but trust me, if you aren't Linus Tech Tips, the biggest bottleneck you will always get when building a NAS is your internet speed, because yeah, that's not true. So in this video, it's time to upgrade my Raspberry Pi NAS and improve its transfer speed by more than 15 times. But before we get to that, if you enjoy my content and you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. It would really help me out. Other than that, check out our Discord server and Patreon where I post weekly exclusive content. Thank you. As I already said, your network speed doesn't have to be the bottleneck of your NAS transfer speeds. If you're connected through Wi-Fi, then yes, it will be, but the reason building a NAS setup makes perfect sense in the first place is the fact that the data can flow through the internet cable without ever going through internet. The way to do this is to connect your Raspberry Pi and your computer to a router or a network switch. So that means that I just took two cables and connected my NAS and my computer to the router, and that was it, right? Well, no. You see, the issue in my case was that the router has Ethernet ports that only support up to 100 megabits per second. That's 12.5 megabytes a second, which would improve the speed by a little, but not by a lot. Rated speeds for Ethernet ports usually go up by a factor of 10, meaning it goes from 1 to 10 to 100 to 1000 megabits a second, which is 1 gigabit a second, which also is the top speed that the Ethernet port on our Raspberry Pi can transfer data. So this will be our goal. 1 gigabit a second is 125 megabytes a second, which really is more than 15 times the speed that I've got by transferring the data through the internet. But because of my router, what we need is a network switch. This network switch sort of sits between the router and the devices, providing the high-speed transfers between these devices while also providing the internet connection when needed. The one I decided to buy is this TP-Link SG105 due to its affordability and good reviews. It costs around 24 bucks, has 5 Ethernet ports, one will basically connect to your router, so there's support for up to 4 devices. So there's room for upgrades in the future. But most importantly, it supports gigabit transfer speeds, which is exactly what we're looking for. One thing that this switch unfortunately doesn't have is PoE, Power over Ethernet. This would allow us to, well, power the switch using the Ethernet cable. But since it comes with its own power adapter, I'm not complaining. After unboxing the switch, the setup is super simple. You'll need 3 Ethernet cables. Make sure that at least the 2 that are connected to your computer and your Raspberry Pi NAS support the gigabit transfer speed. Then you'll need the switch itself, your computer, and of course the Pi NAS. As I've already mentioned, and as you can see on this diagram, the switch will sit between the router and our devices, providing this sort of transfer speed, offline transfer speed between the devices. Once everything is set up, you can connect to your Pi using SSH and then running the command ethtool eth0 and see if the gigabit speed is detected. If it is, congrats, your gigabit connection is live. But the real way to test everything out is of course by transferring data. What I did personally is that I transferred 4 gigabytes of video footage from my computer to the NAS and everything worked almost flawlessly. The only thing that wasn't perfect but totally expected was that the transfer speed wasn't constant. It hit our goal of 125 megabytes a second many times, but it also dipped to around 64 megabytes a second. There could be a few reasons for that. It might be the nature of the files. If you're transferring many smaller files, there will be naturally some overhead, but I don't think that is the case in this situation. I suspect it might be thermal throttling, but I'm also not sure because the CPU is only hitting around 70 degrees while being at 1.5 gigahertz. That means it didn't hit the 80s where I would expect it to start throttling, but it also didn't hit the maximum frequency of 2.4 gigahertz, so we're in this sort of a gray area here. That said, considering that this thing should run 24/7 and in the future I will be transferring a lot of huge files, it really might be a good idea to invest into an active cooler. Right now, the only thing that is cooling the whole Raspberry Pi is this teeny tiny passive cooler that comes with the Raspberry Pi 5 case, which also has a fan. So I really think that we should invest into an active cooler. Will that affect the transfer speeds? I'm not sure, and I don't think so. Maybe in some larger files where it would push the CPU into throttling, but we will see. But you can definitely expect a video about this in a couple of weeks. When it comes to the conclusion, I'm really happy with the setup and the upgrades we've introduced today. I mean, improving the speed by 15 times is pretty significant. And the next 15x improvements will be much harder because not even a 10 gigabit switch, ports and cables would cut it in this case. Other than that, I can really recommend this TP-Link switch, but what I would recommend even more is just buying a smart router in the first place. But you live, you learn. But that will be it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe, and also check out our Discord server and Patreon. Thank you and see you guys next week. Bye bye!